Okay, so right now the Pontiac has absolutely no brakes in this car. So we put it up on jack stands. We're going to go ahead, we're going to evaluate everything from the master cylinder back. I know it needs rear drums. There's things I already know it's been needing. There's absolutely no emergency brake in the car. We got a single pop master in this old guy. We got to change all of it or evaluate it and see if it can either be rebuilt or we're going to purchase all new. But it's time to get brakes on this car. And this way we can start it, move it around and drive it, and wash it, and just make life easier. Gotta have brakes. So again, we're on jack stands. Let's go ahead, see what we gotta do. Now the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start at the master and booster, work my way back. Everything that's bad on this car is gonna get replaced. So we need to pull that master off this thing, off the booster. I notice a little bit of rust around the booster that usually indicates a leaking seal in that master. Hopefully that booster's okay. It's a little wet right now. I sprayed some blaster on the bolts right there to get those broken free. I also, they were real stiff, so what I did was I applied a little bit of heat. That's my little trick. I'm sure you've heard of it yourself. You heat the bolt with a little propane, benzomatic type thing, and then shoot your blaster on that after you wire wheel it a little bit. So I did do that. They're soaking. I'll break those free, I'm sure. The line right there, that steel line, that is just a single pot line, right? But it came off pretty good. The line looks like it's in good shape. I do know that emergency brake cables and things like that, I'm putting all new on this car. So I can stick with that single pot. They use them for years. I know everyone says, well, you lose a line, you got no brakes. Well, if your emergency brake's working, you're okay. So it'll get you to the shop or home. So I can make use of it. I just hope that the booster is okay. Sourcing those may be a problem because they're pricey. I can get another master cylinder on the cheap. They're under $100 usually. Or I can rebuild this one and keep it all original still, but we got to redo it, rebuild it. So let's first get it off the car, get it on the bench, and see what those seals are looking like. I got a feeling it needs a rebuild kit, something like that for sure. So one step at a time, let's get it off the car and see what we got. Okay, I got the master on the bench here and I took it all apart, and to evaluate it, we looked through it, and as far as a rebuild kit goes, let me show you the inside of this bore. Let me try to get a light in there. But see the bottom of the bore right there? It's like the whole length of the bottom of the bore right there. You see that? I'm trying to zoom in, but that's all big. That's a lot of rust right there. If I were to hone that out, and try to make that, yeah, see all that rust on the bottom right there? It's all along the whole bottom, which is pretty typical when they go. Gravity, right? Water, whatever, sits in there and just does that to it. But yeah, she's pretty spent. So I think we're going to have to go ahead and forget about the rebuild on it. It was, wasn't so bad in there, but on that bottom, if I were to try to hone that out, I would probably have to increase the size of that bore bigger than the kit would provide. It's a 1-inch bore now. So I'm kind of thinking, yeah, let's just go ahead and be safe and not even waste time with a rebuild kit. I would have rather kept this original, but I found a couple of them. I found a couple online, and it's, under $100. I think I was around $70. I found one really cheap for $37 on Amazon, but I'm not sure if I want to trust that one. But all of this would have been included in the kit, even another seal for the cap. So yeah, I guess I'm just gonna have to say goodbye to the original one. Just too rusty in the inside that bore. Well, let's take a look at the booster itself, see how that turned out. Okay, so there's the booster. The push pin is in pretty good shape. It's one of those adjustable ones right there. I kind of like that. It doesn't look like there's any contaminants inside it. It looks pretty good. That seal's dry. So I think any residual rust on the face of anything, on the front of the booster or anything like that, I think that's just from years of maybe someone who accidentally spilled some, or it was seeping. We had a seeper. But let me try to get some light down on the bottom. See, the bottoms are just got, to me, that looks like normal rust from an occasional dripping master cylinder. So, all in all, the pedal inside the car travels fine. It's moving. So nothing's bound up in there. I did lubricate some of the linkage in there with a little white grease just to do it so that pushes through real smooth. I don't know if I need a new booster or not. I think I'm just going to have to go ahead, do the master cylinder, do the rest of the brakes, and drive the car. And if it needs a booster at that stage, because I don't hear any sucking sounds that are bad coming out of it, just pushing on it. It sounds normal. So maybe we'll get away with just cleaning it up, shooting a little paint on it or something, and maybe that'll solve it. I'll look into that a little more deeper, but I think we're going to be okay. I think we just made it with that booster. But everything goes on old cars, so I have been checking into resources on where to get them, and they're expensive. They just are. So we don't want to have to change it until we have to. But the worst that would happen if the booster were to go, my guess would be I would have manual brakes, and it would be really hard to push down. And at that point, I got an emergency cable that will work. I'll be putting all new of that in. So I've seen way worse looking seals. It's not too bad in there. Just rusty, surface rust. Let's get a new master and move from there. Okay, so I got a new master cylinder for the car. I went with an A Premium new single pot. So before we go ahead and bleed it and do what we got to do to put it on the car, we first need to make sure that this inside right here, in there where the inner piston gets pushed in, and on the booster through into the pedal there's that adjustment rod, and you got to make sure that that's making contact correctly. Otherwise, when you go to mount this in the car, you're going to end up having a case where the brakes are always engaging. You don't want that. You want about a 1/16 of an inch. I'll show you on the car. I'll mount this on. I haven't bled it yet because I want to do some paint work on that booster. But before I go ahead and do that, we got to get this guy adjusted right for the car. So let's go ahead and I'll show you on the car the rod adjustment. Okay, now you see on the very tip right there, that's the rod adjuster, and it's a 3/16 nut. You move it in and out. What you want it to do is you want it to be, before it engages the internal piston on that master cylinder, you want it to be within like a 1/16 of an inch away from engagement once it's mounted into the car onto the actual booster. So I took my master and I adjusted it, and I got it to where when you hit the pedal, a 1/16 of an inch at this tip right here is going to be where it translates down to about a 1/4 of an inch to a 1/2 an inch at the actual pedal. When you're touching the pedal, you'll move it about a 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch before brakes begin engaging. That's what you want to have. You don't want to have it to where as soon as you hit the brakes, it's real touchy. You want to have a graceful sort of a thing. So that tip right there needs adjusted to be right. If you don't adjust that right, and you put your master on and it's already engaging the piston, you're already using your brakes. It'll drag, and plus the brakes, the hydraulics won't bleed out correctly. It'll always be like a false reading, and your master is always going to be on. You don't want that. So when you release your pedal, you're a 1/16 of an inch away from engaging the piston. That's how you want those to be set. So just wanted to point that out. So now that I got that adjusted, before I go in and install the master and bench bleed it and all that fun stuff, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tidy up the outside of that booster. I looked in the manual, and in fact they were painted like a satin black. So let me go ahead and get that prepped. I got all the hoses pulled off it. Let me mask off a few things. And then we're going to go ahead and tidy it up. Shoot a little black on there since the master's out of the car. Now's the time to do it. Well, I got it all tidied up there a little bit better. I shot some satin black on that. The master cylinder itself is just sitting in place. I wanted to just put it in place to see how things were looking. But it's an improvement. So now I can pull that master back off. And again, it's just hanging there. And we'll bench bleed it, and then we'll go ahead and really install it on the car. But it's an improvement over the all rusty look that it had. And again, just some satin black is all that is. So let's move on. Okay, so we got the cable here, and right here you get it off the pedal, off the clip. It clips on this ball end, and the best way to always get these off, instead of fighting them, what you do is you've got these tabs on the outside. I'll show you on the new cable how the orientation is. Here I've got a 13 millimeter, a 14 millimeter, but it's a 12 point. And what it does is you fish it over all of the cable and everything in the end nub, we'll call it, right where the metal and this plastic meets. What you do is you put it over the top and you push it down, and it'll collapse all of those tabs inward. And then while that's sitting on that, you take, like, I don't know, basic screwdriver, put it right on the top of it right here, and then pound down. It'll pop out. And I'll show you on the inside on the firewall. Now there's the cable right there, and you see how it started to break right through. It's pushing through. Now simply grab it from the outside with some channel locks or something and pull it out all the rest of the way. Okay, so here's my old one, and here's the new one. Here's a flaw in the original design. They have these big long spring. Now there's a spring underneath this, but what happens is all of this gets caught inside the frame as it fishes through it. So they put this outer coating to make it slide through better. And here's where it attaches to the pedal. Here's the other one, but these are those prongs right here. And you put the wrench over all of this. You put the wrench over all this, and then it crunches these down, like you see on this new one. All these tabs, they get crunched down. Okay, so there it is inside the car. It's mounted up to the firewall. It's clicked in place. That's what happens with those tabs. It clicks, and then it feeds down, goes through that slotted hole right there into the frame, and then it stays in the frame, and then I'll show you underneath where it continues and where it secures. So you see where it feeds through underneath, goes through this frame, and then it attaches with a clip here that holds it in place. And then the rest of the cable is, the rest of the cable gets attached to a different spot as we go, and I'll show you when we get to that. But that's all it does, is it clips right there, and inside the frame is the rubberized coating. So that's what holds it in there. So since this is now clamped, I can press that pedal, and this spring right here is what's keeping it taut. And then there's another spring that's inside I believe it's underneath the coating, and that's what keeps that. So when you pull the lever, it springs back. So that part of the e-brake is done for now. We got the rest to do yet. Okay, so now we got the e-brake pedal. Let's test this out. Goes in nice and taut. The release pulls it right up. Nice and stiff, nice and taut, like it's supposed to be. So the first cable is in and it's set. Okay, so there's a clamp holding, and that line in the center, I cut that because the rubber hose where it was connected to it was so fused, I decided it's just easier, and there was enough line there to where that clamp is just kind of holding it out so it doesn't pop back through the hole. It's actually just fine. I'm going to reflare that and put a new 7/16 fitting on that. So basically from that point back to the differential and then the lines that go over to each individual rear wheel cylinder, those lines are all going to get changed. And I'll show you in the shop. I took it all off the car already. It's just easier to do and show you that way. But that had to be cut. It was just so bad. So we'll just put a new fitting on that, reflare it, and then basically from that point, all the rest of the way to the back will be new. So basically from there forward up to the master cylinder or the block, it's good steel lines. So that I got going for me here, I think. So let's go ahead and show you the hose inside the shop here where I got it laid on the floor, and I'll show you all how wonderful that looks. But that's salvageable right there, and luckily there was enough of the steel line there to just, again, the clamp is just holding it from going all the way through. It won't be an issue. I'll be able to reflare that no problem. So here's the hose. Look at this right here. I mean, here's where it was connected. This end was what was connected, and then right below it right here is where I cut it. There was just too fused up. I tried to heat that up. It wasn't budging. This hose was all collapsed. There's the other piece of whatever. But yeah, so that's where it connects, and that's where that clamp is holding it in the car. So we're gonna put a new fitting, replace this fitting on that line, all new hose, all the way down to this right here. I'm just going to replace both of these to the wheel cylinder. So now as far as the rear is concerned, I'm going to rebuild all that. I'm going to go ahead and get new rear wheel cylinders for both sides. These, look at that shoe right there, disintegrated. Both these rear wheels were locked up as it was sitting in that field. And obviously the shoes took a brunt. And we're just going to go ahead and pull it all apart, clean it up real good, maybe shoot a little paint around areas I think I want to do. And new wheel cylinders, all that fun stuff. Go ahead and get some new components for it here and there. Now over here, the drum, yeah, it's pretty rusty. It's been sitting off the car since it's been in the garage. And that's been a while now, but you can see there's an old spring and a retaining pin sitting there. I'm going to go ahead and change that drum. In fact, I'm going to do both rear new drums. I could probably clean it up, but yeah, I have no idea how much is on there. I could measure it. It's probably not going to matter much, only because these are old, and you can get new ones. They're about 90 bucks each. I ain't liking that part of it, but I'll have the assurance of knowing from that fitting that I cut for the hose from their back will be pretty much new. And it's, again, the other drum on the other side, driver's side, it actually has a little chip on it. And it's like, as soon as I saw that, the other side was actually harder to get off. That's why it ended up getting a chip just beating the hell out of it. So basically from the rubber hose back, pretty much new or rebuilt. So yeah, moving on to the fronts now. See that line right there, that comes out, that rubber hose right there, pretty shot all the way into the back. It's real hard, and they typically need changed, so we're going to go ahead and change both these fronts out. And that line right there, I'm a little suspicious of it right on the end. It's only about 8 inches long. It goes to the block just inside. And I think I'm going to just change that steel line right there. Looks like she could use it. And there's the other end of that 8-inch that goes to the union block. And it's got a hard bend right there. And then you can see it goes to the left, and that hose or whatever's in the way right there, but it goes in through there. And then it fishes along the frame and then goes right inside the wheel by the left, in this case, the left front tire. and it goes through, and you can see how it's kind of crusty on the end. It's got some weirdness going on with it. When I see something suspicious, I'm going to go ahead and just change it. I'm not going to take the chance. So that one's going to get changed. Okay, so now I'm going to get ready to put this rear rubber hose. Get this on, and this is where it mounts to the axle, and here's where it mounts to the main 1/4 inch brake line. We'll go ahead, we'll get this on here, get it flared, put that on there, then I can at least connect that. Okay. So now we got that guy on, and it's flared. Hopefully my flare doesn't leak. Hopefully it won't. Okay, well, I got it sprayed down with some brake parts cleaner. Yeah, look at that. That shoe completely destroyed. Everything is pretty much intact. It's just trashed in there. Cracked shoes. It's all together. So, yeah, we're just going to go ahead, do a rebuild. Clean all the rust off everything as I'm doing it, clean up stuff along the way. It's just the same way anybody else does it. The only thing I will say is to anybody out there that's watching this, when you're taking apart drums, it could seem to be real daunting. What you got to do is just keep organized. So what I'll do is here on the floor, I'll put the new shoes, and as I take each spring off, I will connect, I'll connect the spring on the shoe, and we'll just go from there. Make sure we just keep everything organized, because I am taking the whole thing apart. We got to get it all down to the backing plate, wire wheel it down, and just basically give it a good brake job. So, yeah, let's get going. Well, obviously, when you're doing this kind of thing, you will have mishaps. I ain't ashamed to tell you that when I went to take this guy out, which was pretty much corroded on there, these two bolts right here, both of them snapped. And tried to use an extractor to get the studs out, and that happened. Pretty common. They're junk. They don't last. So what I did was I drilled out the best I could and then re-tapped them. They're basically a 5/16 bolt with a 1/2 inch head on them. But this little guy right here, this is what's left of it. I mean, just look at all that grinding and cutting right there. It happens. This plate right here was literally fused to the back on the other side. But I'm going to have to prep it and clean it. Got to get the wheel cylinder out yet too. I'm sure that's going to be just as frozen in there. Hopefully they don't snap. But yeah, I just look at that. The typical doing the drum brake junk on the floor thing. But there's all my new stuff sitting over there next to the old. But anyway, yeah, this has been delightful. Anyway, let's move on. Let's get the rest of it, get that wheel cylinder out of there. Well, that wheel cylinder came out relatively easy. Now we just got to clean it up, wire wheel it down, get all the grime off of it, and we can start putting new parts on. Okay, here's my first little issue with parts. This is a brand new centric wheel cylinder. They did not supply bolts to mount it for these. Here's my original, and these are the 7/16 that are still good, but they go to the trouble to make this part, right? But why don't you make one, or at least provide bolts with it? You didn't. I've got the right size right there, except that those are 1 inch length, and these are just 1/2 inch. So I need shorter bolts. I bought that bolt right there that go into the e-brake bracket that I had to re-tap, and where the studs broke. But I'll just head back up to the hardware store and get 1/2 inch length ones. I don't understand how they can make the part, but they don't supply bolts with it, or keep these sizes for this. So there's the e-brake cable for the one side of the rear I'm working on, and that's where she attaches into the frame right there. And you want to put this side in first so that you have the flexibility to go ahead and put it into the backing plate. So I'll show you that in a second, but you attach this end first, and that cable in the center there, it pulls out and moves back and forth smoothly. So this way you have some draw, and then when you go ahead and hook that up to the intermediate cable, that will draw outward. Okay, so here's where the other end of the cable now, she's connected into the other end where I showed you, but now you've got the flexibility here to draw this in and out, move this a little bit, move it back. So now you got all that extra room right there to connect. You got to connect it to this guy on the end, right there, and that goes up in here. But you got to be able to connect this end onto it. So, and we can mount it. Okay, I got the wheel cylinder mounted in with the bolts that I ended up getting, and it's holding, it's in there right, everything's good. I got this plate for the e-brake mounted, so that's all in there now, it's holding, good. Got the cable routed down, e-brake cable mounted onto this plate right here. So now I can start assembling all of this now, finally get it all back together, grease up where I got to, and yeah, so let's move on, let's start putting everything back together. Okay, ran into another parts issue. You can see that the shoes on the right and the shoes on the left are my originals, but this spacer bar right here, here's what's wrong. You see this area right here? It's got like that right there, but look at this one, it's just flat. It's not going to work. If you measured from like this right here, this wall, to like here, it's longer. And if you look over here, it's shorter. So what happens with the wrong ones, what will happen, is when you go to put this in, this is the adjustment for the e-brake. And what's going to end up happening is this is got, see how much difference it is right here? And then you look at this guy, they make contact so that the spring kicks back that e-brake. Once you pull the e-brake, this is the strut for it and the spring on the end, and this is how it's supposed to work. So when you pull the e-brake cable, as it feeds up into there, this side rides on the bracket for the e-brake and the shoe, and this end, this slot, fits over both, but over here it's too far back, so these won't work. So Rock Auto, their information for this exact shoe set, which is, these are Wagner's, part number Z272D. This doesn't work on my car. Their website said they worked, and it doesn't. So I ordered some other ones. They're not Wagner's, they're Centrics, I think they might be, but they're accurate, at least according to the picture, and they do say they fit my car. I got them on order. They were double the price, but they're probably going to be the correct ones. At least we will hope, right? But this is the kind of stuff, you know. And the funny thing is I went on the AI on the Google, and it says, oh no, you're wrong. These will be a direct fit. AI is wrong. And of course, I won't be the first to tell you that. You may also agree with that. But to have this right here, kind of like these little ears in the corners, that's what these have to have on my car. So, yep, just that little bit of an update in the process of doing it. I was gonna put it all together, and I was like, you know what, these don't look right. We'll go ahead, we'll wait, we'll get these in a couple days, and then I can go ahead and put them on the car. But Rock Auto, you got bad information up there. You just do. We'll wait, we'll get the right ones. Okay, well, I got these replacements for those. These and these are the newer ones, and you can see that how they have this weird shape going on, just like the originals for the car. So now, when this spacer bar goes in, you can see how it works there. Clip hooks into, like I said earlier, and here they'll be accurate. Unlike here, these guys, that's too far apart. Now I can put them on the car. Okay, well, these shoes went on well. Everything lines up. You can see that this bracket right here, I know that's in the way, but it fits in there right. You can see along, it goes over to here. Some light on that. You see how it fits. And that spring, what it does, the way these springs are, these little ears that were inside that, the spring kind of fits into those so that it has movement back and forth and kind of stays put. Kind of a nice thing, I guess. But yeah, they're in. Everything's right. I just got to adjust that adjuster right there and get the new drum on and get it sort of set up before I can go ahead and start when the time comes to bleed these. So, okay, that's one done. We'll go ahead and knock the other side out. Hopefully there'll be no issues there. Well, new drum. Got the adjuster adjusted, and yeah, so new drums fit pretty good too. That's that. Let's go do the other side now. Okay, so I got the other side done here on the rear brake. Got a new drum on it. I adjusted the adjuster on the back. She's turning. You can hear the other side turning with it. But anyway, got the other e-brake on this side now. So now that both rear e-brake cables are done, I can now focus on getting all the e-brake done. Okay, so now let's go ahead and get this intermediate e-brake cable on. Basically, you got these ends right here. One end each side. One fits onto each side of the rear e-brake cables. And then this, once I take these zip ties off, this will clip into this one. And this one will clip into this one. And then you've got underneath the passenger seat this hook. And this hook goes underneath, this goes into the cross member, and then this, the cable guides on this side. And on the driver's side, you've got what's called the equalizer. And this is held in with these two nuts right here. And it's on the threaded end that's already in the car, the first cable. And so this, the cable goes in through here, and then it hooks onto this, then hooks into these, which tie in all the cables together. So let's get it in the car. I know it's a little confusing right the way I'm doing it here, but I just wanted to show you the components that are going into the center cable, intermediate cable. So let's go ahead and put it in the car. Well, here in the manual, it shows how that intermediate cable actually connects. If you look, here's the cable, and here's the cross member right here, and it feeds over. Now they're a little small, and I'll show you little blow-ups, and there's a reason why I'm showing you this out of the manual. But on this side, on the passenger side, I'll show you the blow-up of it, but right here, that hook that I showed you earlier that goes underneath the passenger floor, well, there's no provision in my cross member for the hook. And I'll show you, where is it at here? Okay, right there. DUE, I think that is? Yeah. See how that hook is supposed to hook in to a hole right here? Well, everywhere I've looked and referenced to this point, it's supposed to hook on top of the cross member, up on the top. There's supposed to be a hole downward that this hook hooks into. So since that isn't on my car, and from the research I had done, it pretty much is explaining that the 400 transmission that's in my car, THM 400. They had the 350s prior to it, and the cross members they used, they really didn't adapt them. And everywhere I've checked, they're saying simply just drill a hole and work it that way for yourself. Well, because there were conversions and all this nonsense, but the 400 was introduced, you know, and they show this under here too on another provision, but that's really for a GTO right there. And this manual I got is for B-bodies. It's for my exact car. So the way they have that going, all of it, all the rest of the connections and everything for all this is all accurate for all this, how it hooks onto the rear cables. But the intermediate, and there's an issue with length, and you got to get the right length, and I took care of all that. I've got the right cable, but the hooking end of it, that I have to adjust. So let me show you under the car what I'm probably going to do. In fact, I know I'm going to do. So let's move on and let's show you that. Okay, you see where that hole is right there. You see how you got that hard bend right there. That's the end that's supposed to go into the cross member. And if it were associated where it was on top, it would hook. You see I got the cable right here. Okay, it would hook that cable, and it would, the cable's not really even, you got to stretch it to actually go into that existing hole if it went. But since it's this kind of an end, it should have to fit on the top of the cross member so it could hook it and hold the cable. Unfortunately, there's no hole provision at the top. However, this hole right here, there's another one on the other side of the cross member, and both of them don't do anything. They are not associated with the brake cable at all. So I got to thinking, based on the manual, the hole's approximate spot is just above the curve right here in the cross member, which would place it in this area, but the floor's in the way. You couldn't even hook that thing up there, even if I had a hole drilled from the bottom, for example. So what I decided to do was, I'm going to eliminate this $20 hook, kind of a rip-off, and I went to the hardware store, and I got this. And this guy has a threaded end, and I got a couple of extra washers and bolts, and this hole right here, I'm going to take that idea and I'm going to put a hole right about here this way, and I'm going to modify this, and I'm going to crimp it down to where it's smaller of an area to hook a little bit closer to how that is right there. I'm going to heat it up, and I'll use the, heat it up and close that in a little bit better to make it more useful. Then I'm just going to hard bolt it right in here. And because I've got that threaded right there, so what I'll do is I can adjust it in and out this way. So basically on the other side, on the driver's side, I've got, you got the equalizer. Well, I'll have an equalizer on this side too. And it's a little bit longer so I can hook it. See, the key here is that you want to have this cable, the cable be in a position where it's closer to the transmission, to where both rear cables are coming to kind of a V, and then just over the cross member. Otherwise, if I were to try to use this hole, this cable will be spread too far apart, and it'll locate it just under the U-joint. And I don't want to do that because, well, we could have clacking, clinking, whatever noise, and it could mess it up. And so it's got to be orientated where it's closer to this cross member, and then it's on the bottom of the transmission tail housing, and it can rest up against that, no issues. So that's going to be the way I'm going to have to modify this. And even the internet and people I've talked to, they all say get it as close to the cross member as possible, and don't use like this hole. Don't try to hook it on the floor somewhere. It's just not the way it goes. GTOs are a completely different story from the B-bodies. GTOs hook along the rails on the sides and all that. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to pop a hole in right in this kind of area. And this way, once I take this longer hook, I can adjust it and pull it right up against it. Kind of put it in this sort of position right in here. I hope you're seeing that. Might be going off camera there. But right there is kind of an area. Let me see if I can get that over. Move that camera.
I don't know if we're seeing it. Yeah, you can see that. But see, so this way I can get it off, and it's pretty much going to be between this point right here and where the equalizer on the other side. It's about a foot across, maybe about 20 inches, maybe, something like that. But I'll be able to take this and be able to, imagine if there was already a hole there, and I can go further in, which will push it away from the universal. And that's going to be the way I'm going to fix this. And it's just, everything on this car has been having to have some sort of customizing. I'm okay with it. It's just, you know. So let's go ahead, let's drill a hole, modify this guy right here, and we're really just going to make it imitate this end. Close it in a little bit, heat it up, close it in. So let me modify that, get a hole put in it, and we'll go ahead and move on from there. So, oh boy, who knew, right? Now you know. Okay, so now I got the new hook, modified hook, installed in the car with the cable on it. And if you can see farther back there, the equalizer, I have that tightened up. And I tested it, everything's good to go. And pretty much the e-brake is completed and it works. And let me show you here. But as you can see, the cable, it's nice and taut, it's straight going across underneath the transmission tail, right under the tail housing. It's not coming anywhere near. Let me see if I can get the light better back in here. I think you can see that better. But it's not underneath the universal. It's more forward, and it's going underneath. In fact, it's not even touching the transmission tail housing at all. It's nice and taut. I got the equalizer adjusted again, and so let's go ahead and let's test it. Let me go ahead and engage the parking brake pedal, push it down, and let's see how she's working. Okay, I'm going to push down the e-brake pedal. A little nice and tight. Now I'll release it. Pulls right up, nice and taut. No play in it. Okay, so let's test this out. Nah, she's not going nowhere. Yeah, she's locked up, just like it should be. Went over to the other side. It's stiff over there too, frozen, just like it's supposed to be. They're not going nowhere. So, the e-brake is done. It's nice to know when you got that single pop master. And then I'll release it. Pulls back real good. Moves. No problem. So, we're done. Let's move on to some other stuff. Okay, so now I went out and bought like 25 feet of this 3/16 brake line, and I'm going to cut 2 of these. These are for the rear axle that go from the rubber hose to each individual rear wheel cylinder. And it's basically just a 3/16 line with these kinds of threads. Let's see, they're 7/16-24. And we're going to go ahead and put 2 of those guys on, obviously, 1 for each end. So I use my cheapo flare tool, don't laugh, but these get a bad rap. These actually work. I can go get a $300 flare tool, but I paid 15 bucks for this at Harbor Freight. It does the job. You just got to remember, when you're using these kind of tools, a tool like this, they got these dies that go with it. So what you want to do is make sure that this is oiled. And I use this like a basic cutting oil, or 3-in-1 oil will even work, but you know, hydraulic oil, something. And when you put these in, you just got to make sure that it's lubed, so that when you go to tighten and torque and use the tool, it goes in smooth. It doesn't like crack the line. Or it helps it so much. And it even says it in the instructions. I don't know why people don't read it, but this ain't a bad flaring tool. I know it's not a $300 one again. But anyhow, back to the lines. We're going to make 2 of these. These are about 32 inches each length. Flare the ends, and then go ahead and get them on the car. Okay, so got both rear lines over the rear axles at the top of the pumpkin where the rubber hose is at the T, down over each rear wheel cylinder.
So that's done. So let's go ahead and move on to something else now.
Okay, so pulled off the front drums. They look good. I'll show you those in a sec. These look to be, they look like they've been redone many years ago, but there's still plenty of pad, or shoe rather. There's still shoe. You can see there's like blue coloring on here, and these springs look to be replaced. So the spindle looks good. The bearings are Timkins. They're original. They look fine. I'm just going to repack those, replace the rear seal on it. I'll show you that also in a second. But we're just going to go ahead. We're going to change out those shoes, and I'll keep these extra just to have on hand, I suppose. But there's no cracks in them or anything. Okay, here's the drum. It's not too bad inside. It just needs to be cleaned up and then scuffed with some emery cloth. The national inner seal right there, it's been pounded on a little bit because I think they've been serviced, so they're due. They're not leaking. I probably could reuse it, but I'm not gonna. I'll just go ahead and change them out. I'm getting the actual national part number 291295. Let's see if you can see that. It's right there. But anyhow, the Timken bearing inside is fine. It's spinning fine. So yeah, we're just gonna go ahead and clean these up and reassemble everything, and then go ahead and just rebuild this guy. Okay, so I got a little container here, soaking these bearings overnight in some purple power, and yeah, they cleaned up pretty nice. Just gonna blast them with some brake parts cleaner and repack these. Again, there's nothing wrong with these original bearings. They look great. Okay, so I got both the drums here. The one on the left I have to clean yet. The one on the right, well, that one I already repacked the bearing and pounded in the new seal. Pretty much just take like an impact and fit that around the outside and then pound down evenly, and it's nice and flush with it when it's done. I always do them that way. The drums are in okay condition. They're not mint, but I'll be okay with it. I can always take them to, I got a buddy, he's got a shop, and I can have a couple turns put on it if I have to, but I think they'll run okay. I'll know once I'm driving it. If it's an issue, then I'll have them returned then. But for now, let me just scuff them, shoot them with some brake parts cleaner, and I think they'll be okay to run. Okay, so I shot some of this high heat Rust-Oleum on the drum as like a primer. It's pretty good high temperature stuff. It's real cheap. It's less than $8 a can at Walmart, but I use that as kind of a primer. It's a flat, and then I sprayed some high gloss over both of the front drums and got those all prepped and ready. Let's let these guys dry, and let's move on to the front end brakes. Okay, so I got the front shoes and everything off, pulled off the end rubber ends on the wheel cylinder. The bolts on those, I got one out, but the back one, it's got to be original because the nut is so rounded off. There's very limited access. I'll get behind there and show you. Okay, right there, you can see there's that bolt. That's original. It's been rounded off. And if the wheel cylinder was replaced before, they reused that bolt, and it's so rounded off. I've heated it and put PB Blaster on it like 6 times. It's not budging. Pontiacs all have this problem in the mid-60s with the front drums, and I've seen a lot of YouTube videos on this, and people take the whole thing apart and go to all that extra trouble, pull the ball joints apart. Ball joints are okay in this car. I don't want to be breaking them apart until I have to, right? So for now, that's going to be my strategy because I'm kind of stuck with that. So lots of fun. Well, I finally got that wheel cylinder out of there. Here's how I had to do it. I took a hand chisel and I pounded downward, creating this sort of slot you see here. And once I got that shape formed, whatever, put in there, then I took my regular air chisel and I carefully put it right kind of here in the corner. And when I pulled the trigger on it, I pulsated it just real quickly to just get it to break free. I was able to get it broken free. So once I got it to turn, then I got a haphazardly was able to get a quarter turn out of it until I finally get it to come on out. So, but I kind of knew that we're going to destroy that bolt because it was rounded off anyhow. So, but I did look inside here. I tried to hone it a little bit. They're too far gone. They're pitted. So I decided I'm not going to play with these. Let's just trash them out. So get that out of the way. Brand new wheel cylinder and brand new bolts with lock washers. So for the fronts, I'm just going to go ahead and put brand new wheel cylinders in the fronts with new bolts. I'm sure the other driver's side is going to be the same way getting out with that. I'm going to have one of those bolts be a problem. So, you know, pretty much that's just the way I'm going to go. Why waste time? But I did want to try to attempt to save that wheel cylinder with a hone job and just maybe just only replacing the bolts with a rebuild kit. Can't find the rebuild kits for them because of this whole, the way that these seals are in here. The only ones you're going to find for these cars is the kind of rubber that goes over the outside right here, and that's not right, because when you look, that rubber is going to be obstructed by that right there. Right here. It's not going to fit over it. It can only be an internal sort of a rubber gasket on these. So we went with new. I'm better off with that, I think. So let's move on. Alright, so I degreased the backing plates, both sides, and then I shot some brake parts cleaner on there. Now I'm going to hit them with some high temperature paint just for the peace of mind. They're a little scaly. Go ahead and get that tidied up a little bit better. I'm going to do both this inside and the outside as best I can just to have some coating. It's a daily driver, you remember, so I'm going to just tidy it up a little bit, make it look a little nicer. Alright, so I went ahead and I sprayed down just a light coat, just a couple light dust coats of the high temperature paint, and then the contact points I took some lacquer thinner and just wiped off, and then I will be greasing all of those. There's 6 of them. For the spindle, we just went ahead and took lacquer thinner on a rag and got any overspray off of it. But it's ready for pretty much assembly now. So let's go ahead and get those wheel cylinders installed. I also did sprayed on the other side too. Just misted it on again. Well, there's another brake line out of the car. That's the front line that goes from the passenger front wheel over to the Union. And that's probably as old as the Reagan administration. So we just gonna go ahead and change it. It's about 60 inches long. I got a new piece right there. I'm gonna flare the ends of it and we'll go ahead and get it in the car. Wheel cylinder installed with the new bolts, new rubber hose, new clamp, new steel line. This goes all underneath the cross member, goes back to the brass Union underneath that master cylinder. So hopefully no leaks. Now we can go ahead and start reassembly. Put this guy back together on this side. Alright, so I got the adjuster to do yet, get the drum on, but all the brakes put back together. So let's move on and get everything adjusted, move on to the other side. So we got the drum on now on the passenger, and the spindle has been greased. The bearings have been packed very well, and got the cap on. So now everything's adjusted. I got it to where it's just barely touching. Hear that? That's where we wanted them. So when you put the car in reverse and lock them up, the adjusters kind of put them in a good spot then. Then you just break them in. We didn't turn these drums, if you remember, so I kind of wanted to just adjust them just ever so slight. So they spin free, everything's good. So now I can move on to that driver's front and get that side done now. Got the driver's front done now. Got it adjusted, greased, just like the same on the other side. Put in a new rubber line. Got this short little 8-inch squiggly little one that went up to the brass Union, but that was that short guy, so that's new. So everything's together. Got them adjusted just to where they slightly drag. You can hear that. So we're good. So we'll move on to the next thing. Okay, we're finally done. Master cylinder done. We bench bled it, got it on the car, hooked up all the lines. Everything on this car is just about new now. The only exception is this line right here, this short 1/4 inch that goes down to the union. It doesn't leak. It's fine. It's pretty sound. And the only other line that I kept was the one that was replaced before I owned the car, that goes from the union all the way back to the rubber hose that I did reflare the end and replaced all new from there back. I would say total cost for everything, mind you, I did all the labor, so that saved a bunch, but I would say that I probably got under $600 total cost for parts. I'm not including things like brake parts cleaners or any of that sort of stuff, or brake fluid. You know, that stuff you have laying around. I mean, yeah, I bought some new brake fluid, but in the big picture, you know, all in all though, it's not too bad. I could, you know, here's the thing, you know, guys like us that have all these old cars, we are forced to do this work ourselves. Are you really going to trust some newer mechanic, and nothing against them, but they don't work on these old things? Are you really going to trust them to be careful, not trash things out as they're doing, going down the rabbit hole of breaking 20 things to fix one? When you're doing it yourself, you've got the peace of mind that your baby is being protected, at least as much as possible. So, you know, brand new e-brake, brand new rear drums, all new lines. I'm just going to guess here, but if I were to have paid somebody who I trusted to do all this work that you just saw me do, I probably would have paid $2,500. It could be that much. Now, that's probably a high estimate, but I don't know. It just, maybe it's me, but anyway, we got brakes. We took it on a test drive, drove it down the road, locked up the rears a bunch of times. Everything is sound. The booster is good. Didn't even need to replace it. It just, you know, you got to drive these things and work the kinks out. They come back around. They really do. But she's shaping up. You know, I can at least drive the thing in and out of the garage now and sweep under it. You know, it's those little things. So, yeah, we're done. So if any of you guys who have something like this, if you got any questions, go ahead and send me a message. I'm happy to chat with you in the comments as well. But yeah, this Ventura is going to be on the road as a driver, and I'm very happy that I got this big thing crossed off the list. But I again thank you all for watching, and we'll see you guys on the next video. Take it easy.